Hey y'all, I'm Ana Martinez, your host for Developing Divine Daughters, and welcome back. This is our second episode, and it's been a ride. We've had ups and downs. I'm gonna be honest with you, but we're here now, and I thank the Lord greatly. Now I have another special guest. We have special guests all the time. They're all special, but right now we have someone who has an amazing story, who I definitely consider her my best friend. She's seen me grow. I've seen her grow. She knows me really well, and I know her really well. And I definitely consider her my sister. So I welcome you, Briseida Mauricio. Brisi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
How do you feel? Are you excited? Nervous?
I am excited. I've been waiting.
I've been looking forward to this.
Too.
I'm like,
me too.
When is she gonna come? I
know.
I wanna just sit down and talk. And honestly, every time we're together, like, it's so interesting. It's always so funny, so fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's an enjoyable time, and we also have really good talks too.
Yeah.
And I want the audience to get a waft of what it's like to be with us. So I hope it just gives them that taste, you know.
No, yeah.
So you have an amazing story to share. It's
Yes.
amazing, and I've told you before, I want you to share with everyone because it's really impactful. We've seen God's hand at work in your life, right? We've seen his power, his mercy, and his love just throughout the whole process. But before we do, I do this, and I'm going to do this with everyone. We have an icebreaker question, and I really like this question. I think you'll like it too. What's your go-to after the pool snack? Like, what snack do you go to? Like, what's like, oh, I want this after the pool?
Okay, so like those big bag of chips that you get from the dulceria in Piedras,
Oh, okay, yeah.
and they're like
The huge
like
one.
they're like the Cheeto orange one, or like
Yeah,
they kind of
okay,
taste
yeah.
like if you're chewing plastic.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
that's
Those are
those
good.
are good.
They're like Cheetos from the United States, but they have that hint of lemon. Like, they taste a little different, and
Yeah.
they're addicting. They
Yeah,
really
they
are.
are.
And they're the huge
In
bag.
the huge bag.
And what's your like go-to drink? Like,
It always has to be like a Kool-Aid or a Capri
the
Sun.
Capri Sun.
The Capri Sun.
Those are good.
Yeah,
those
are really good.
I can go. This is bad. Like, I'll drink like
No, yeah.
I could probably drink a pack after the pool, like in the summer day. But that's just like the drink. The drink
like,
after you get out of the pool. Like, it's so good. It just refreshes.
Yeah.
I remember this one time we went over to a friend's house, and she has a pool.
Yeah.
And we swam there, right? And then we got out, we went to her dad's man cave, and we were just munching on those Cheetos, those big bag, and then we made sandwiches, ham sandwiches, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but those sandwiches were so good. They hit the spot like right after we got out of the pool. And then we were also watching a show, right?
What?
I don't remember which show it was. I don't remember. All I know was one that had just come out. Oh, I think it's Never Have I Ever.
Oh, yeah.
Something like that. And I had never seen it. I was just going based off what we were watching there. Yeah. But I remember that the snacks that we had after the pool was just so good. So good. So now let's get into your story, right? So you were diagnosed with leukemia.
Yes.
3 years ago, I believe. Yes.
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
It was in COVID too.
It was
Everything
COVID.
happens in
I know.
COVID.
So
like,
much happened.
Really,
No, yeah.
COVID. Like, what is this? But no, it had a purpose, and yeah. So you were diagnosed with leukemia 3 years ago, and I want you to tell us from the very beginning, like when you found out. How did you find out? When did it all happen?
Okay. So.
Go ahead.
So when did it happen? I say maybe like in June. I was diagnosed June 14. I still remember the dates.
Oh, wow.
I was diagnosed June 14, 2020. Yeah, 2020.
Yes, 2020.
Yeah. Sorry, I just like brain fart.
Yeah,
You know.
brain fart.
But yeah, I got diagnosed June 14. But a couple weeks before that, I had been in the shower, and I don't know, I've been wanting to like pass out in the shower, faint. So this one time, I wasn't even done showering. I still had shampoo and everything.
So you're like, you couldn't just be there anymore. You had to like walk out.
I couldn't. Like I had to walk out because I would have fainted in the shower, and I just didn't want things to get worse. But got out, got the towel, ran to my mom's room, and she saw me and she's like, Brisi, like what's wrong? And my dad and my little brother were in there, and I just remember like me walking to her bed, like covering myself with a towel, and like she was more worried about me like
letting go of the towel and everything.
Yeah, and she was like, I got it, and I was just like what's going on? Because I just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And she told me that my whole I looked like a ghost.
Like you were pale.
My lips were pale, my skin was pale. Like I didn't look like myself.
Yeah.
And my mom was just telling my dad to call the ambulance, and I was like, no, like hold up, like, you know, because at that time, like, I wasn't really.
You didn't want to.
I didn't really want to go to the hospital. Didn't really like hospitals. But my mom, I get changed. We go in the car and we start driving to the hospital. And while we're driving, she's on a call with our youth group leader, which is she's a PA.
Yes.
So she's on the call and she's like, do I take her? What do I do? And, you know, our youth group leader was just like iffy about it too. But I told my mom like halfway getting there, I was like, you know what, like we can just go back. I'm starting to feel better. So we go back. I drink a cup of juice because they thought like my sugar levels were low. And I felt better after that. But then a couple weeks went by. It was our first time back in church.
Yeah.
And I was feeling okay, you know, but my mom had told our youth group leader to check me, and I remember we were sitting on the couch.
And we were like just talking like our normal.
Yeah, we were just talking.
Happy to see each other because we hadn't seen each other because of the pandemic and whatnot.
But so I just remember we were sitting down and Landy comes over.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, Brisi, let me see your fingers. So she starts like squeezing my fingers. She tells me to put down like my eyes. And then she just had a look on her face.
I remember because I also remember that you were really pale. Even after like you had fainted, even though you felt okay, you would go to church and be like, Mom, she looks really pale. It's kind of scary. And then, I don't know, I noticed the look on her face too. Like she knew something, but she didn't want to say it.
Yeah.
She was like, this is not good, but she didn't want to scare us. And she didn't want to say it like, oh, I'm sure it's this, you know? And that's when she went to your mom, right?
Yeah. And I don't remember exactly what we were talking about and just catching up, like girl things, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I have to go. My parents were already in the car, and I was just, like, still there.
Yeah.
And so I say bye to you, and I go outside, and then I see Landy and my mom talking, and it just looked very serious.
Yeah.
And I was just like something's up, right? So I go, and all I hear is, I think you really need to take her to the ER. I was just like, oh, no, like, what's going on? So my mom... Well, we thought was just my iron deficiency was low, and I just needed to take pills for that. But I still remember everything, like exactly how it went down. We had gone to Sonic to get something to eat, and then like I still remember what I got and everything. But we went to the hospital, and then you know, they put us in the room, they take out blood. And we're just there, sitting down, thinking we were going to be there.
Just like it was going to be in and out.
In and out, yes. But my mom had called my dad saying, you know, pick us up. Like, I'll call you when to pick us up. And so, okay, the doctor comes in, and she just looks very, like...
Like, no emotion, like, just...
Yeah, like, very serious. And I was just like, okay, like, what's going on? She just says, we think your daughter has cancer.
Just flat out.
Just flat out like
that. Like nothing like, I'm so sorry. Like just flat out. Just straight to it.
Yeah. And, you know, at the time, I was like, how can a doctor just do that? Like, just tell us, like, flat out. But I'm very thankful, like, she did tell us flat out. Because if she would have told us something else, I feel like
another way would have been like, oh, this is bad.
So I'm glad she told us, like, flat out. But as soon as she tells us that, I just look over to my mom, and, like, my eyes were so watery, and I'm just like
to the point where, like, it blurred your vision.
Yes. And all I remember was my mom was telling me, you're gonna be okay, like, you're in God's hands and you're gonna be fine. And at the time when you hear, like, cancer, you think of, like, they're gonna die or they're dying, right? But when they told me that, when the doctors told me that, my first, like, thought was, I'm gonna die. Like.
And did you say it and, like, oh, I know I'm gonna die, or just like, I could possibly die?
I could possibly
and
die.
I see that this is. Did you feel like, okay, this is it for me? Or
honestly, yeah, because after they told me that, I didn't see a future. Like, I didn't see a future for myself.
Like,
I was like, where am I gonna be?
Gone.
Yeah, like, everything just went, like, everything blurred.
Yeah.
Like, from that moment. And my mom calls my dad, lets him know, like, the news. And I don't exactly remember what was going on, because I was more concerned about losing my hair.
Yeah.
Because, like, you're
We're
a girl.
We're girls.
You love your hair. And I've always been the type to, like, be very girly, right?
Yeah. Growing up, we're like,
yes.
Oh, makeup this, makeup that, let's do this. Yeah.
And, I grew up with, like, long, thick hair.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I grew up with a lot of hair. So, for me, my hair was everything. Like, that was, like, it was everything to me. But, yeah, so I was more concerned about that. So, I don't really remember anything what was going on. But then I remember my dad comes, and they switch out because the doctor told us, like, you might want to go home and get some things because it's going to be a very long journey. And when I tell you, like, it's going to be a very long journey, that just, like...
That, like, scared you even more.
Yes, like... Yeah. It wasn't good. And, like, feeling, like, hearing, like, it's going to be a long journey, you think of it as, like, forever. Yeah. That's how, well, at least I thought.
You didn't see an end to it.
I didn't see an end to it. But, so my parents switch out, and my dad comes in, and, like, I love my dad. Like, he's so adorable. No, yes, like, I see him and I start crying, like, just crying, and he comes up to me. He's like, vas a estar bien, like, you're gonna be fine. Estás en las manos de Dios. And, like, hearing that just brought me so much, like, comfort
and peace. Yeah, I remember you called me that day. Like, it was right after church. We were at my grandma's house, and we were eating. We have our meals, like, every Sunday meal. And you call me, and you're, like, crying, and I'm like, oh, let me go. And you're like, I think you told me, are you alone right now? I was like, no. Like, and I run upstairs so I can have some privacy. And you're like, I have leukemia, I have cancer. And I was like, no. And I started crying, and then we were just there, and then we finally hung up the phone, and then my mom starts yelling for me. She's like, hey, get down here. And I was like, I thought I was in trouble, right? And then I get down, and she's like, what Brisi has? Brisi's sick. And, like, she was getting mad at me, telling me that, like, that, this story is funny. I look back, and I'm like, Mom, really? And she tells me, she's like, Brisi has leukemia. And I was like, yeah, I know. I was just on the phone with her. And she's like, you know what that is? And I was like, yes. She's like, it's cancer. And I'm like, I know. Like, you know how, like, in school they would tell us about leukemia. And I was like, Mom, I know. And she was like, like, she was mad, I guess, out of, like, she was worried. And her form of expressing it was I guess, anger.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we were all kind of quiet that day. And my grandpa, he was still alive at the time. He was still. And I remember it also, like, brought him down a lot. Like, it made him really sad. Because he saw you as another granddaughter. Yeah, you were always there.
Oh, yeah.
You were always there. So he loved you. And so when he found that out, it just hurt him, right? And so we go to the hospital to be there with your mom, and she's crying. We're all crying, and then they're gonna transfer you to San Antonio in the ambulance, right? And you're like, I don't know, you know how there's like a passageway? They're like the ambulance and where they take you out. And so we got to see you, we were crying, and it was just really hard I can't imagine how hard it was for y'all, but it was also hard for us because like we felt your suffering and we felt it for you because we love you and like that. So yeah, I remember it was a quiet day, and I remember my grandpa, he was sitting, I would just go into his room because I'm always in his room, lay down, and he would come in, sit at the edge of the bed, and he would just cry because of the news that he had just received that you had cancer, and he was just crying, and he would pray and cry. And to me, that was like, wow, like this is serious in a way, but also it also showed me that he loved you like so much. But so when you found out, I know I already asked this to you, like we already talked about this, but when you found out, what exactly, like, how did you feel? What went through your mind?
What went through my mind was, why me?
Yeah.
Sorry. Why me? Like, out of everyone, why me? Right? It's always, why me, right? But now that I think about it, as bad as it sounds, I'm glad it was me. I'm glad it happened to me, because I think it was an awakening for not only like me and myself, for my family, but for a lot of people,
like for the church, everyone around you. It was an awakening for all of us. No, would you say like you found out and were you like, oh, why? Like you questioned, why me? But was it like, oh, it's just a coincidence that I got sick? Or at that moment, did you feel like, oh, there's purpose in this?
I didn't really think about anything, to be honest.
It was just more like, why?
Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
That's how I was the whole time.
You were in shock.
What is going on? Yeah.
Yeah. So, how did you feel about God at that time?
You know, at the time, we grew up in church. My parents grew up in church. I grew up in church, going to church every Sunday, every Wednesday. To me, it was just more of a routine. It was never like
something spiritual, something.
Yeah,
like,
it was more of a routine. Like, okay, 9 in the morning, go to church, right?
Yeah.
7, go to church. It was never like a relationship, you know?
Yeah.
But after like everything I went through, like it
completely changed that.
Yeah, like you see, I have like no words, but like it completely changed everything. And you know, to be at this age, to have a relationship with God, it's
rare.
It's really rare.
Yeah.
And it's just honestly the best thing that's ever happened to me.
So you would say that you rejoice in those sufferings because look where you're at now. Like it was a blessing to your life.
Yes, it was.
So now let's talk about, you were transferred to San Antonio, right? And then I remember you were over there for a week.
Yes.
You came back to your house to what, pick up stuff?
We went for a week. They did some tests on me just to go in deeper, you know?
Yeah.
And they did this one test, and then we came back. I was in my room, right? And, well, not in my room, but, like, in the hospital room. And this intern comes in, and she's like, oh, it's not cancer. It's something else. And, you know,
when you heard that, you're like,
yeah. And, you know, my mom called my family, tell them the good news. And then they're like, but we're still going to do more tests
to make sure.
Yeah, just to make sure. They did more tests. And then a few days later, they come back in, and they're like, oh, no, it's cancer. Ooh. And, oh, my, like, when I tell you, like,
that just brought you back down.
It just brought me back down, like, 10 times worse. And the first thing I do is just look over to my mom, like, my eyes were like, what are we going to do? Like, what's going to happen to me?
Yeah.
And I just start bawling out. And, again, my concern was my hair.
Yeah.
At the time, like, I didn't really care about my health. I was 13?
Yeah.
So, you know, at a
At that
age like that, you don't care anything else about, oh, how do I look, you know? But
Wow.
I just
So you went through treatment. How long was the chemotherapy?
I had treatment. I started in August, didn't fully finish until like March.
So that's how many months? August, September, October, November, December, January, February. 8 months?
Basically.
8 months of chemotherapy.
Well, it was actually 4 months of
Oh,
4 months of chemotherapy, and then I had a transplant.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it was just that whole process. And okay, this is something that I'm curious because I know I've heard that people react differently to chemotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
How did it feel? Like, did you feel like physically? Did you feel like sick? Were you dizzy? Did you feel nauseous all the time? Like, how did it?
You see, throughout the whole process, it didn't feel like I had cancer. That was never my mindset. It was like, oh, I'm just sick.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just sick. It was never like, oh, I have cancer. And like till this day, like, I really had, like, it
doesn't click yet.
Yeah, it doesn't click yet. But throughout the whole chemos, I felt normal. Like, I just felt normal until the transplant. And I remember the nurses and doctors telling me that it was going to be very intense and that you should mentally prepare myself. But yeah, the transplant was
the hardest part.
Was very hard, yeah.
Wow. And so throughout that process, I remember you sending me videos and it just looked like you guys were having fun.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it was a moment of like, oh, like, I'm going through this, I'm sick. But I saw that you guys saw the best in the situation, that you guys had so much joy and peace. And not that, like, it didn't just show because you guys were laughing, but physically, y'all looked like, you know what, I have hope in this season.
Mm-hmm.
And so, tell me, what were some of the things that y'all would do that would just...
So, it was just me and my mom.
Uh-huh.
So, now I can say me and my mom have, like, a best friend relationship.
Y'all are like this?
Yeah, we're like this.
Y'all are like
yeah.
this?
No, yeah. Since I did spend a lot of time with her in the hospital, there'd just be some days where we'd just, like, sit and draw, you know?
Really?
Yeah, like, it's because there was nothing to do.
Yeah.
And, oh, my, we would watch so many movies. So many movies.
What movie? Like, what kind? Like,
We
was
would
it specific genre?
Like, all the chick flicks. And I remember this one time we were watching A Walk to Remember.
Ooh.
No, yeah, and I'd had looked through it just to see what we're gonna watch, and we were watching. I didn't tell my mom because I knew she didn't want to watch it. So I remember one of the nurses came in. She's like, "Oh, Mama, you don't want to watch that movie." I was just like, "Oh, like, why did you you know?" And she's like, "Why?" I'm like, "Oh, because, I don't want any spoilers."
But then should we? But then, will they know?
They can watch it.
They can watch
it.
Okay, watch a walk to remember. Watch a walk to remember.
A Walk to Remember, yes.
And then you'll understand why she shouldn't have watched it. But I think we're gonna take a break and then we'll be back. And we're back. So you were saying that you would watch a lot of movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know Walk to Remember was one of the and the nurse comes in and she's like, "Oh, Mama, you don't want to watch that one." And I remember every time you tell me that story, I laugh because it's like the way you just say it.
Our nurses were so good to us, and we've had some amazing nurses, and I still remember each and every one of them, and they hold a special place in my heart. But I remember the nurses would be coming into the room and they'd say, "We feel peace in here." Like, wow. They would as soon as they go into our room, they would feel peace. And hearing that, knowing we have Jesus in our hearts, it's just like, wow, you know?
Like, it shows.
Yes.
It's not something that is hidden, like, it shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so good. And it's also important, like you said, that every nurse was good to you.
Every nurse.
So I feel like in order for you to have a good nurse there at the hospital in general, that person needs to have a heart, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and like, and I'm gonna jump ahead, right? I've always said, like, and you've even told me that you would want to be a nurse there at that hospital because you've gone through what those kids are going through, right? And I think that'll help the kids a lot, knowing that you went through it, right? The Lord defeated cancer through you, right? Because He is healer. And so that also bring a lot of comfort and joy and peace to the kids, knowing like that you went through it too. So, but I'm jumping ahead, right? So, no, yeah, it's good and great to know that walking into that room, there was peace.
Yes.
There was peace, and that the presence of the Holy Spirit was made known. And so, you already told us about losing your hair, that you didn't want to. Yeah. And honestly, I couldn't, like, that's like scary. Like, I know it might sound shallow, but we're girls. Yeah. We do care. We care about that stuff. But I'm going to step in a little bit. You told me, and you've shared that when you were in the process, you had a vision, right? And I want you to tell us about that.
So, I don't recall which procedure it was in. But I think I had a biopsy, just to check, right?
Yeah.
I was coming out of I was waking up from the anesthesia, and I just remember they were like pushing me out. Like, I was on the bed and they were pushing me out into like what is it called? The post-op, or like after I don't know.
I don't know any about that stuff. You know way more.
I forgot. But it's like the room, like recovery room. Yeah. They were taking me to that room, and I just remember one of the doctors was like, "You're a champ. You're a champ." And I just remember I couldn't see. I couldn't see, but I could hear everything that was going on. And I was panicking because, like,
you couldn't see.
I had my eyes open and I couldn't see. And I remember I started crying, and they put me in the recovery room, and I was just crying and crying and crying and crying. And the nurse calls my mom, like, to come and see me. And my mom heard a crying that sounded like if someone was getting murdered, right?
Oh, wow.
And my mom has never heard me cry like that before, so she didn't know it was me until she came in the room, and she's like, Brisi, are you okay? Like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I couldn't talk because of how overwhelmed I was, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't talk. I couldn't see. And my mom would tell me, like, I would, like, squint my eyes because I was, like, slowly getting my vision back, but I couldn't really see. And, like, I would be touching my eyes, like, just to see if they're open, like, just to make sure if I didn't go crazy, right? Yeah. I was touching my eyes, and she's like, Brisi, like, are you okay? Like, what's wrong? She thought, like, something happened to me, or, like, they did something to me. And she's like, did something happen? Did something happen? And I was just like, yes. Like, I was nodding because I couldn't talk. I was just like, yeah.
You were in shock that you...
Yeah. And then she's like, good or bad? And I was just like, good. And then she's like, tell me, like, what's going on? And I just remember, like, wait. Hold up, like, let me catch, like, you know. And I finally told her, like, I saw something, and she got, like, scared again. Like, what did you see? Yeah. And I was just like, I saw something good. And I finally tell her that that I saw an angel telling me, not now, but you will be fine. And from there, just...
Like, you were like, okay.
I was just like, okay, like, I can sit down, relax, and just wait for this to go by. Yeah. And I'll know, like, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. So it brought you, like, a lot more peace and comfort. And you said it was, like, you couldn't see, like, was it, like, a bright light, or was it dark, or, like, how, like...
It was, like, a silhouette, right? And it was just bright. Like, just bright. Wow. Everything was bright. And the light was, like... Or, like...
The shadow was dark, but the light was behind it, kind of?
No, the light was the silhouette.
Okay.
And there was, like, you could see, like, I saw, like, rays. You know how, like, the sun rays?
Yeah.
I saw, like, rays. You get what I'm saying? But all I remember was, like, not now, which is, like, it's not my time to go yet.
Yeah. So that was just telling you that you have purpose in this, right? And that you're going to be okay. Wow, that's just... I remember, like, my dad, when you told that story to my dad, and my dad was like, wow, like, he wanted to tell everyone what you had seen. And, wow, that's really good. That's crazy.
I still remember telling my dad, because I think it was one of those days where I was going to go back home for a week, and then I would come back. Okay. But my mom's like, tell your dad, like, wait, what happened? So I tell him. He was driving. I don't know where we were going. He was driving, and he had to pull over because he started crying.
Wow. He was just touched.
He had to pull over, and he was crying. Aww. Like, bawling his eyes out. And, we're over here crying again because it was just very touching.
Yeah. And crying, like, the good cry. Like,
it was a
happy cry. Yeah. Wow. So I'm going to skip ahead. You were told that you were in remission, which is you were cancer-free, right? And how did you feel when you found out that you were cancer-free?
I mean, I always knew. It was always something, like, at the time when they told me, like, oh, like, because it was on you for me. But as days went on, it was just like, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be okay. So I remember my doctor telling me in the room with my mom, saying that I was in remission, and I had no emotion. I was just sitting there, like,
I knew it. Like I knew.
Okay, and my mom, like, she was just like, like,
relieved.
Like, yeah, she was relieved, and I just sat there,
like that's what the Lord did.
Yeah,
like you're like kind of like in a, not prideful, but you're like, yeah, the Lord did that.
It was more like how do I say it? No, well, yeah, like, more like
I knew I was gonna be okay because the Lord told you. Yeah,
I felt it.
Now, what motivated you to keep fighting? Because I know there's people where they're like, this is too tiring. Like, I just wanna, like, I'm done. Like, what motivated you to keep going?
I'd say a lot of things, but mostly sharing my story. Letting people know. My mom, most definitely, because I don't know, she was there. She does so much for me, and I couldn't give up.
Wow. So what did you learn from all of that? Like, over everything, all that you went through, the good, the bad, the ugly, what did you learn from all of that?
I learned they should just trust in God and put all your worries, because there'd be some days where I'd worry, and, like, this level would be high, and this is, like,
it was just alter back and forth.
Everything was a mess, and I'd just get super worried. And at the end of the day, I'm just like, when I would go to sleep, I'd just be like, okay, like, I shouldn't be worrying. Everything's in God's hands.
Yeah.
And we're human, we worry.
Yeah, it's normal.
But you just always have to have that it's in God's hands
mindset.
Yes.
Yeah. No, yeah. I remember I was talking to your mom, and she was talking to this other friend who had come to church, and she was sharing everything that had happened, and she was in that season that she learned so much, that she grew so much. She would wake up praying. And so that's something that's like, I was like, wow, like, in a way I kind of envy that, because you want to wake up praying, like, you want it to be like that. But she said that she learned how to trust in God. And we were having Bible study recently the other day. We were talking about faith, a faith that saves. And we also talked about, like, we've all had situations that reveal to us what faith truly is, right? And I can say that was your situation. That taught you how to actually have a faith that saves, one that trusts in God, right? And so that is something so powerful that you got to experience that. Yes, it was, I can't even imagine what you went through. But, I mean, it taught you faith.
And there'd be some days where I just sit there, you know, and I tell my mom, how do people go through this without
Jesus,
God? How do they go through this? Like, who do they go to?
Who do
like,
they run to? Who do they trust in?
Yeah. I don't know. I know I couldn't do it without.
Yeah. We've talked about it before, where before, like, this is part of my story. Before I got serious with the Lord, I had problems, yeah. Everyone has problems. But I don't know how I dealt with those problems without God. Because now I look at it and I have problems. And I'll say, yes, my life is a little bit harder now that I have a relationship with God. But it is so much better because, because you have God in your life. You have Jesus in your heart. And he's fighting your battles for you, right? And so I would rather, and I know you think the same way, that you would rather have problems, way more problems, but have Jesus than have no problems at all.
Yeah.
And wow, Brisi, like that, the fact that you saw what faith was throughout the process, it's amazing, right? And look at you now. You are closer to God. You have a relationship with him. Now it's not, I would just go to church every single Sunday and Wednesday. But now I go to church and I have friends in Christ, right? And now my life is surrounded and he is at the center of it, you know? And so that's good. So like you said, you went through all of this.
Yes.
And you're glad that you did.
As bad as it sounds.
But it was a blessing because it taught you to be strong and trust in the Lord. And that's great. Now, I'm going to step more on the emotional side. How did you feel emotionally?
You see, throughout everything.
Like, let's talk about your human part. Like, yeah, you had that hope spiritually, but your human part, what did you want to do? Like, did you tend to want to feel worried? Or did you want to run to things that...
It was more... How do I say it?
Like, were you sad?
Were you... Okay, yeah. There's been some days where I'd be sad again. Like, why me? And there'd be other days where I just go on about my life. You know, there's nothing I can do except pray about it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go to the last question already. So how does what happened affect, like, you now?
Like in everything?
In everything.
It affects me a lot in school.
Like learning-wise or how?
That, and there's some things that I can't really do. Like, my body's still recovering. Okay. I'm still in recovery. Yeah. Right?
Like physically, right? Like sports and stuff.
Yeah, like I get cramps on my hands and it's so annoying. Like, it's really annoying because I can't make certain movements, or how do I say it? Like
anything can trigger.
Anything can trigger my hands and I get really bad
cramps.
Hand cramps. Spiritually, I see it like if something bad happens, right, or something doesn't go my way, I'm just like, okay, like God had other plans, another way for me, right? It's never like, no, I wanted it to go my way. I see it as like, I just need to wait. Yeah. I just need to wait.
Yeah. So you have more of a hopeful mindset, and you can remain firm in those promises that God has made, right? And like you said, sometimes things don't go our way. Yeah. And the Bible just has so many verses and so many wise scriptures on that. And he promises us that his plans are good, right?
And are better.
And are better. And therefore are good.
Mm-hmm.
Plans to give us a future
Yeah.
and a hope, not plans to destroy us. So even though that which you went through might have seemed like, you know what, there's no hope in this. Like, this might be it. But the fact that he let you out and look at you now, God had a plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we need to trust in him and
Yes.
his plans. And we also need to learn how to surrender our plans
Mm-hmm.
to him, even though it might be really hard to do.
Yeah.
But we need to pray and ask God to give us a desire and help us surrender our plans to him and trust in him. But thank you, Brisi, so much for being here. I love your story. I can listen to it over and over again.
I can talk about it.
I know, and I love
So many
that you
times.
can share it to
Mm-hmm.
anyone. And every time you just share it, I still get emotional. I still feel like crying, and I still feel like jumping up and shouting and
Yeah.
praising God. And I also thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed what she had to share, and I hope it touched your lives. And I hope you guys come back and listen to any other content that we have. Thank you. And as always, seek Jesus.